This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 170 of Horsemanship Radio, brought to you by Finishline Fencing, the original and only warranted horse fence of its kind. Horsemanship Radio is part of the family of the Horse Radio Network, and today we have some geniuses. They really are. They really figured this whole thing out. Dr. Juliet Getty joins us again, and she's going to talk about winterizing our horses. And we've got a beautiful couple, a really heartwarming story coming out of Arizona. This is Debbie Laux, and you're listening to the Horsemanship Radio. Thanks for joining us. Horsemanship Radio airs on the 1st and the 15th of the month, and I couldn't do it without my producer, who's here with me today. Hi, Jen.
Aw, I feel needed. I like that. I like to feel needed.
Oh, I'm telling you, you are needed. It's absolutely true. If anybody, well, it would be silence without you. That's what it would be. Absolutely nothing.
Silence. Well, as we record this little bit of our episode today, you guys out there at Flags Up Farms are finishing up the transitional horses clinic that you did. And in my personal opinion, groundbreaking quantum shift in how people who are in charge of finding homes for transitional horses find the homes, and how people who are about to bring in a transitional horse do it. So give us kind of the quick and dirty overview of what it was and how it went.
It was so fun. That's the quickest one. And it was so much fun. We call it the Monty Roberts Mustang and Transition Horse Program. It is generously funded right now as a pilot program of the Right Horse Initiative, which is a program of the ASPCA. Yep, we've been brainstorming on this for a few years. We're just a little slow, but we finally pulled it all together with some really wonderful people. And the idea is that, we don't have to say rescue horses anymore. We don't even have to say rescue dogs and cats, but we know it's acceptable in the dogs and cats world. In horses, it kind of gives this connotation that you're going to throw them in the back pasture, sanctuary-like. They're done, and they're not. These are beautiful. They're off-the-track thoroughbreds. We have an unstarted saddlebred horse. We have an appendix paint horse named Mariposa that has a butterfly mark on her shoulder that's just unbelievable that it came out like perfect. And, it's just these really cool horses that are looking for their next home and their next vocation, and they're athletic. We got a war horse in there. He won a court. He's so pretty. He is cool. He's gray. He's 9, and he is built like a tank. He won $250,000.
Wow.
And I know, just an unbelievable amount of races. He's the quietest, gentlest. I mean, everybody wants him. Unfortunately, that's the sad part. And then we've got some other OTTBs that are just started. So they're 3, 4. And then we've got a 6-year-old, again, raced in Dubai, won a bunch of money, is sound and solid.
So you had a whole bunch of horses that came in.
Yeah.
What happened after that? A whole bunch of horses came to Flags Up Farms. What was the format?
So the format was, hey, if we're going to do this and do this as a pilot program, the barrier to entry in adoption is often the training. Everybody knows that. You can get the horses from here to there, and transportation is sometimes a challenge, but really it's not. It's the training. The people that want a horse need to know it's a reliable horse. And, I'm Monty Roberts, the name Monty Roberts, and training go hand in hand. And so what we decided to do was put this pilot together, and then it's COVID time, right? And Horse and Country TV did this beautiful job of live streaming the movement. It's just our event that we have in the spring. And they are excited about having live streaming content. There's a really smart man named David Qualls who has started really, he's like the ESPN of horses. He does all the live streaming all across the United States. And David came to do the movement last June, and we just loved him so much. We said, if you want to do anything else, well, what's natural? This was natural. So on Monday morning last, we started the cameras rolling, live streaming on Horse and Country TV. And of course, Dad, who works without a net, he's, doesn't have drop of adrenaline in his body. He just started working with these horses one after another, never having met them, just taking them at face value. What is this horse? Oh, he's been ridden. Okay, all right, we'll go from there. And this horse has never seen a saddle? Okay, we'll go from there. And one after another, we worked with these 9 horses in various training routines. We did a morning session and an afternoon session, and it was a marathon, and we all were so inspired. So that is the Monty Roberts Mustang and Transition Horse Program. We will open up for adoption here almost any time. So what we did, I don't know, Jen, if you remember, but we have a thing called the 6 imperatives for a horse to be reasonable to train and ride. Mm-hmm. And the 6 imperatives are basically a horse will stand still, it will turn left, it will turn right, it will back up, it will go forward, and come to the mounting block. So with those 6 imperatives, we thought, okay, everybody's got to have those little check the boxes before they leave. Mm-hmm. And that means if they've just had their first saddle and rider on, it might take a little bit longer than the war horse that's, won 29 races. Right. So Salty, his registered name is Unlikely Taste or something like this. And he's gray. So of course he's salty around here.
Fabulous.
Perfect. Right. It's just absolutely perfect. So yeah, he's going to be good to go here in probably early next week. So people should go to montyroberts.com/adopt and read all about the program and the amazing people that are associated with it. It's Christy Capper. We call her Tex. She's down in Texas, and she is the program manager for the Right Horse. And of course, Emily Weiss is the head of the equestrian or equine division of the ASPCA. These are real horse gals and real businesswomen too, and they have a passion for the adoption and transition horses. And then, oh my gosh, if I get started, all the names that are involved in this. Jamie Jennings is,
she
host.
Out there too, yeah.
She was out here, and she believes in the program. She is at the program because she's also doing this with Horse and Hound in Oklahoma, where I think they increased adoptions from 30 a year approximately to about 80 plus in this last year. So it really is working.
It's going to be a quantum shift as different groups and organizations who are working to find homes start to embrace this. And for me personally, it's just as exciting that people who want to bring a transitional horse into their life, they can also benefit from it, because the horse has to have those 6 imperatives, but so does the human.
Yes, exactly. And we often don't know where to start.
Yeah. The next time we record together, I want to have 6 imperatives for the human.
Okay.
Because I think we miss that. That's a good important one. Because
good job, Dan.
Just like you can untrain the best training in the world if you're not a good human.
That is so true, Coach Jen. You've seen it, probably.
I've seen it. I've seen it. So there we go. Well, that is so fabulous. We could go on and on and on and on and on about it. And I suspect as time goes on, we'll hear more about the next clinic that you guys are going to have, and maybe we'll get some stories about horses who were adopted out of this first clinic. Yeah. But in the meantime, we're running short on time, so we need to hear from our fabulous sponsors, Finishline Fencing, hear all about what's going on there. They make the only warranted fencing of its kind in the world. So listen carefully, and then when we come back, we're going to get to our first guest.
Yay. Well, I'm here again with Kim and Lisa, and we're talking about Finishline Fencing because I get a lot of questions from people who are trying to put up one thing or another, and they know now about Finishline Fence and your product. But here's some of the questions that I get, or at least one biggie. What's the difference between Finishline Fencing, the original, and Finishline XL?
Yeah, absolutely, Debbie. Like I mentioned before, the original Finishline has actually been out for over 30 years now, and that one was actually developed for horse safety. It's 1,250 pounds of tensile strength. It's 4 millimeters in diameter, and it's available on a spool, and one spool only weighs about 24 pounds, so it's very lightweight and easy to handle. XL, on the other hand, has been out for a few years now. It is 1,850 pounds of tensile strength, 5 millimeters in diameter, and it really just adds to the visibility, that thicker diameter to it.
So that's the main feature of that, is so that you can see it a little bit more from a distance aesthetically for visibility for the animals?
Yes, that was one of the main reasons. And actually it was an answer. We came up with this because a lot of our customers keep their cattle and the horses together. So we needed to come up with a solution for them. So we needed something a little higher tensile strength. So by increasing the diameter, which gave you the beautiful line to look at and more visibility, it also gave you that added tensile strength. So that way, the horses and cattle, when they were worried about maybe it not being strong enough at 1250, the original. So a lot of people, we came out with this, and it's actually very popular. Still very economical, and it's really in high demand right now. I'll put it this way, 30 years ago, we used to sell about 1% black. Now it's about 3% black. And I think it's more of a trend in style.
If you've got both colors available, they should counsel with you on what's going to be the best look and the best safety for their horses for their particular region. I imagine green backgrounds versus sandy Arizona backgrounds, might make the difference. Thanks for sharing all that too. So where do people find you? How do they get a hold of you?
So there are a few different ways that you can reach us. We do have a website. It's finishlinefence.com. Our Facebook page is Finishline Fence, or you can give us a call at 877-625-6100. You can order online. We have a full shop on our website. You can give us a call. We'd be happy to get you a quote for free. And we do ship out daily and worldwide as well. We're very quick on shipping. We usually ship out the same day, if not the next business day.
Christopher and Amanda Moore founded Reigning Grace Ranch in 2009, and together they have over 20 years of experience working with children, teenagers, and horses. Christopher and Amanda met when they were just 12 years old. That doesn't happen anymore. Both traveled the country as professional competitive dancers, and they became dance partners, and then true friendship blossomed. The rest is history. Well, welcome. I've got Amanda and Christopher Moore on the phone, and they're from Reigning Grace Ranch, and I'm really excited. We have been planning this for about a month and a half, I think, to get you on, and I know how busy you are, and no wonder if people go to your website, and we'll give them that to write down later on too. But I love your motto, where redemption runs free, and I love your story. But before we get into Reigning Grace Ranch, which is the reason for the being here on this podcast, I'd like to know a little bit about you two, because it's interesting to me how not only a person makes a decision to dedicate their life to something like this, which is serving, frankly, but how a couple does it and how that came to be. So, Amanda, I'd love to start with you. We got to chat a little bit. We were introduced by friends of ours, Kim at Finishline Fencing, and I love their team, and I'm really glad she introduced us. And I feel like I know you, even though we haven't met. Oh. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how you two came to the decision that's going to change your lives a little bit.
Yeah. So about 11 years ago, Christopher and I were struggling in our marriage, and we had actually grown up together dancing. So we had something that we had in common, and something that we, a common goal we worked together for, achievement, that type of thing. And stopped dancing, got married, started our careers, and we found that we were growing apart. And we both had a love for horses. I had horses growing up, and he had horses growing up, but we just never could afford them. But it came to a point in our marriage that Christopher, it was actually Christopher's idea, said, hey, we need to have something that we do in common together that we can love together. And so we got into a point where we could afford to buy 2 horses. And so we decided we bought 2 Tennessee walking horses from Texas, actually. Mm-hmm. And that's how it all started. It was one of those things where we just needed to have something that we shared together, because I think too often marriages start drifting apart because they don't share some of the same passions together, and they don't share, just what to look forward to the next day. And it was really kind of a cool experience, because as much as it was a together thing that we did, it was very much individual, because I started to pay attention to what the horse was telling me. As a kid, I had horses, but they're more of honestly, they were my mom's show horses, and they were a lot of burden for me. So I really didn't pay attention a whole lot to them until this next phase of my life. I started recognizing, if I would come out to the barn in a bad mood because Christopher and I had been fighting, my mare wanted nothing to do with me.
Really? Yeah.
yeah, so that started us on this journey of common language and common interest, and quite honestly, horses saved our marriage.
That's nice. Good grief. That is a huge statement, but I bet there's a lot of people out there that don't act on that. So cool that you picked it up. And Christopher, what a great thing that you thought of. Why horses? Why, Christopher, did you think that would be the approach that you would take?
It's a good question. I think in some ways it's totally a God thing. If this were, and I'm not really a sporto kind of guy, but I would call this a Hail Mary pass, because I really thought our marriage was done. In fact, sometimes talking about it, Amanda might laugh at me because I get really emotional about it, because I knew that I was the reason why it was falling apart. I was so focused on building our company that I'd forgotten about my partner. And so, going to bed at night was like, we didn't, Amanda and I were dance partners. That's how we met. Really young. We danced competitively. We were on hee-haw. So we had done that very well together. So we were tight. We'd lift and throw each other. I'd lift and throw her in the air, and she'd know that I was going to catch her. We had that kind of relationship.
Right.
But we grew up in this business that we had started, and she was running the company with me, and we'd go to bed at night, and it was no longer "I love you" and I'd give her a kiss. It was, "How are we doing with receivables?"
Yeah.
And it would turn into conversations that weren't friendly. So honestly, I thought I just about killed it. The reason why I picked the horses was, it just popped into my head that it was something that I remember doing, that I enjoyed doing, and I knew that she loved animals, and I thought this is something we could do together, but we'd also have a little bit of space.
Mm-hmm.
So that was
a lot of work. A lot of work. I mean, that's that was going to make or break, I imagine, right?
I had no idea what we were getting into, but I will tell you that it was an opportunity for me to figure out how to really become closer to my wife and love what she loved. As much as I loved horses for me as a kid were a tool. I was raised in the classic cowboy roper world. And so hanging out with Amanda, horses had feelings. They fought, they responded. Like she said, if we were having a bad day, if you were paying attention, your horse was telling you that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that Amanda picked up on that, because a lot of us kids grew up that horses were a job. I mean, they were a job, right? And they were a lot of work. You had to get up dang early in the morning to get chores done and, buckets filled and all that. So I kind of get that notion that a lot of kids do leave horses, possibly because it's easier, frankly, to do other things, I guess. But that does it does belie the fact that they have those qualities that we didn't always see as kids. So, Amanda, how did you notice that first and not feel like you're going to get into a job with Christopher again?
Right? Because I think at this point of my life, I was now in this self-discovery phase, and I was willing to do whatever it took. If my work was taking care of the horse, and the laborious chores that it takes to do that, I was willing to do it because she had a lot to teach me. And I was hungry for it. And I would go out to the barn every day and almost sit there and go, okay, what do you need to teach me today? And my goodness, I think, at the time she was a 3.5-year-old mare. And here she was an amazing teacher. And so I think that's what got me through it. And, honestly, the chores now as an adult for me are a lot of therapy. Mm-hmm. Honestly,
I know what you mean.
It's the only time that I have in my day to be still and do a mindless chore, but be alone with my thoughts and think through my day and think where I'm at, if I'm grounded, and then it's interesting because if I'm grounded, my horse will come and put her chin neck on my shoulder, from behind. And I know she knows where I'm at when she checks in. So
yeah. They're like biofeedback machines, aren't they? And I'm putting it back in the machine category, but I mean, they do know exactly, well, they just know our intent. And I love that you can read them like that too. Now tell us a little bit about how you've turned this spark, this idea into Reigning Grace. It's just a phenomenally large program and has a lot of people. You're changing lives.
It is. It is. Well, I figured about 10 years ago, Christopher and I rescued a herd of feral horses out in our Sonoran desert that they weren't wild horses. They were actually quarter horses that ranchers just kind of left out here. It used to be open grazing, and they just kind of disappeared as houses were built. And as we brought this herd of horses in, which we were crazy at the time, we were fairly new horse people, and you take for granted that horses don't come halter broke. And so we managed in a 2-month period to bring in 67 feral horses, adopt them out. And in the process of that, all of the neighborhood kids were coming out because they all had experience with these horses, because these horses would be like sleeping in their front yards. I mean, they were everywhere.
Wow.
And, kids would come out and they'd have story after story after story about different horses and what their experience was. And these kids were so devastated that the horses were asked to get rounded up and taken away because it was a part of their life, their story. And the kids were out there helping me. And all of a sudden we had this the horse was our common ground. Like, we had been friends forever. And these kids started sharing with me some pretty tough stuff that they were going through. And I thought, what is it about these horses that's allowing these kids to feel this comfortable around a stranger? And then compounded by the fact that, I went to my teacher, my horse, every day and said, what do you have to teach me today? They just have this amazing way of making time stand still and be completely present in the moment, grounded with them where nothing else matters. And I knew what they did for me, and I was watching what they were doing with these kids. And I said to Christopher, I think we need to start a ranch where we're working with kids that are struggling and use rescued horses to do it, because they have stories that the kids identify with. And that's how it started.
That's beautiful. Chris, you have redeemed yourself. Absolutely. From anything you may have felt less than for. And how did you feel about the horses as Amanda was sort of modeling this for you? Did you catch on to that immediately too, of what the kids were able to do being around the horses?
Yeah, so Christopher 1.0. Yeah. Using the geek term.
I love it.
I'd have been pretty focused on myself, but in the Christopher 2.0, I was really trying to figure out if I wanted to be a leader in our family, I needed to be a good servant. So I had to pay attention to what Amanda's desires and where her heart was. And, it's interesting, as I was watching this unfold, I could see what she was seeing. And I remember distinctively at the very end of the precipice of the beginning, right? Amanda woke up in the middle of the night and said, I had a dream, and God told me we should start a ranch, and it should be called Raining Grace Ranch. And it was like this epiphany thing, and it was 2:00 in the morning. And what I had learned from my past was, when my wife says she wants to do something, you need to get on board with it. And so that's what we did. And I ran with it with both feet in.
Yeah. So how many years later is it now since you started Raining Grace?
11 years.
Wow. Okay. So you passed that tipping point. And how do people support you? What do you do to support such an amazing, huge program?
Oh my goodness. We are supported by the average Joe person. It's $100, $20. It's truly a community-driven nonprofit. And so we're 100% volunteer-based, and it's everyday people supporting this ranch every day off of donations, and it runs. We've probably, in the course of the 11 years that we've been in operation, we've probably had about 325 horses move through the ranch and find homes or stay. Or, some horses we bring in as a rescue situation that are not really going to be suitable to go back out because of medical needs, and so stay here until the end of life for them. So currently the ranch is home to 70 horses, everything from draft horses, miniatures, and everything in between. And they're all utilized in the program.
And you use the word family a lot on the website. And I love that because we can see the diversity in the photos. Horses, of people, of ages, everything is completely diverse. So how is that a lightning rod these days for you guys? Are people drawn to that to kind of pull together, or is that something you have to work on all the time to keep people together?
Yeah. So, I think, I was raised in a rancher family. They were all dairy cattlemen. And so, Sundays at grandma's was like everybody else's Thanksgiving, whole family gathered. So we really wanted a feeling that when we were together, we were all united. And so the culture of the ranch is that everybody matters. Everybody has a purpose. And so because we function that way, I think people are hungry for connectivity. We're so disconnected today with technology. It really wedges us apart, right? And so at the ranch, you're so present, and everybody's part matters. You're working with 12 and 1,400 pound horses. If you're not all working as a team, lots of stuff can happen. And so, don't you feel like that's one of the places where people really
I think it's really cool. I would say a primary client of the ranch is foster kids. And so these are kids that are coming from broken homes that don't know what a family is. And because we grew up in a family, it's so important. But what's even cooler is for the kids to come out and see a herd of 70 horses operating as a family. They take care of each other, the alpha, and then you've got, they just, the way they take care of each other, and they don't get their feelings hurt, but they're firm but fair. And, there's all of these things that we teach the kids, and they can watch the horses do it. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I think, like Christopher said, people are hungry for grassroots, what does it feel like to belong and to be held accountable with love? Too often it's easy to get out of stuff. And that's not I see our kids that are so used to quitting that it becomes part of who they are. And before they even start, they've already quitted because they know that's their MO. Yeah. And at the ranch, they're not allowed to do that. If they're going to come out here, they are, they're a very important integral piece, and there's other people relying on them. And a lot of times we talk about that with the herd of horses. Mm-hmm.
They don't do well as a single out there, do they? Horses just don't do that.
They don't. And they take care of each other, and they all have roles. And yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's so many strong lessons growing up that, we didn't even know as kids, right? We didn't always see all those lessons, but I'm sure our parents were just going like, the horses will teach them that one.
Exactly.
Which is a great way to be. Well, we want to support, so appreciate that you're out there doing this, and I know you're not doing it for us, but we're appreciating from afar. But how do people find you? Do you want to give your website, phone number, something that people can?
Yeah. So our website is www.azrgr.org, and the phone number is 480-466-2154. And as you can imagine, because we're 100% volunteer based, 100% donor based, we are always looking for many hands to make light work, whether that be on the volunteer side or the donation side, and then as well as kiddos that need that leg up, that need to be put in become a herd member, to be successful. So
people are curious about where to send their kid. They can talk to you, but I imagine you're mostly Arizona based. And that's what I was going to say about the website is AZRGR is what? Arizona Rain and Grace Ranch is where you're getting that, in case somebody didn't catch all the letters in it. Yeah. Yep. And look at their site, look at their beautiful community that you've created. I see lots of Finishline fencing, which Kim has probably helped with that. But it's brilliant because you've really carved out a beautiful place, and it's probably not at the highest price that you can pay for such it's very difficult these days for nonprofits to make that. And I'm hoping that people will support you after listening to this. I know I will.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you.
Imagine if you could take Monty to the barn with you. Watch and learn as he addresses each challenge with your horse and answers your questions too. You head to the arena and you work on each new lesson, knowing Monty's there to encourage you, all with violence-free, tried and true methods. After all, he's been helping train horse lovers all his life. With his online university, you could be like Kathy, a retired teacher who just bought her first horse.
Recently, I went to a tack shop to look for a smaller halter. I'm 61, just purchased my 14 hands POA the day after my birthday, just a few weeks ago, after never having had a horse. And yes, that's crazy, but as a retired teacher who never had a hobby other than teaching, I decided to go for it. My hubby and I have taken lessons this past year, but I really longed for a relationship with a horse. The only other experience I'd ever had was to ride a horse in Philly, Pennsylvania, my hometown, when I was 16, and I got bucked off. And that was it until I was 61. Well, the owner of this tack shop, this precious lady, 84-year-old lady, gave me a copy of this magazine, Equine Monthly. And the article I read in it was Horses Are Biofeedback Beings. And it was just so interesting. I really felt like I just found a pot of gold when I read it, because in it talked about Monty's online university and that I could have access to 575 videos for $10 a month. And before that, I was just searching YouTube for everything I could find. But truthfully, that's just a pain. I love that the uni videos are concise and they're in order. They have extra notes and a quiz. And I just can't thank you enough for the huge blessing of your online university. It really has changed my life, and I will never be the same. I've had my horse Jack now for 7 weeks, and thanks to the videos, I've done join up with him, and it really worked like a dream. I had to do it in an arena, but it still worked, thanks to Monty's lessons and the cues and the hand signals. The ability to watch the lessons over and over on demand is incredible. So I also want to thank you so very much for making the online university affordable for this retired teacher. Thank you so much for all that you do for everyone who really wants to love a horse. Kathy.
Dr. Juliet M. Getty is an independent equine nutritionist with a wide U.S. and international following. Her research-based approach optimizes equine health by aligning physiology and instincts with correct feeding and nutrition practices. Dr. Getty's goal is to empower the horse person with the knowledge to provide the best nutrition for his or her horse's needs. Dr. Getty is the author of the comprehensive resource Feed Your Horse Like a Horse, as well as 7 topic-centered spotlights on equine nutrition series of booklets. She also offers an informative e-newsletter called Forage for Thought. Her website, GettyEquineNutrition.com, provides a world of useful information for the horse person.
Well, welcome back, Dr. Juliet Getty. How are you?
I'm doing fabulously, Debbie. Thank you so much. It's a joy to be here, as always.
Oh, it is so much fun to have you. And I understand that you're going to be traveling a little bit in the next few months, so we'll have to catch up with you when you get back. I'm glad to hear that you're getting a little exploration time in this weird year.
Thank you. Yes, I need some downtime. I think most of us could use some. So it's important that we all take a little time to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, it's sort of a perspective year, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's been quite a year for most of us. And so thank you. But I'm still going to be working a little bit while I'm away. I can't completely leave it alone, but I will enjoy the going out west and the cool, crisp air. Be nice.
Yeah. Where are you going?
Oh, Wyoming, Grand Teton National Park.
Beautiful area, and very agriculturally based. So that makes sense too. You're getting out there. I hear there's more sheep in Wyoming than there are people.
Well, when I used to live in Colorado, we used to have the sheep migration, and it would back up traffic for miles. It was really quite fun to watch. Cool. But I don't think I never saw sheep when I was there, but we see moose and elk and bison and all kinds of beautiful wildlife.
Oh, thank you for that little postcard. That was great. Yeah, we all want to get outside a little bit more. I know everybody's trying, but anyway, that's why I love this idea that you had for this episode. We have you on about quarterly or so, and so you're very seasonal for us. And this subject you thought about was transitioning horses to winter feeding, and I like that idea. And we're sitting here around the first part of November, and some of us, in the warmer climes may have just been climbing into a different feeding system than earlier in the year, but some of us might already be struggling a little bit to get our horses transitioned. So what do you say to that person who really wants to do it right?
Well, of course, like you said, it depends on what part of the country you're in or what part of the world you're in. So, but if you are in an area where, for example, your horse is accustomed to having pasture, and now, you need to switch your horse to eating predominantly hay, and pretty soon it'll be all hay because, there'll be at least a foot or more of snow on the ground.
Could be, yeah.
So you need to be aware that the cecum, the fermentation vat of a horse, has billions of microbes in it, and they get accustomed to certain types of feedstuffs. Mm-hmm. So when you're switching, and most people are aware that if you were to switch feeds, you would do it gradually. And the same is true if you're going from pasture to hay. Mm-hmm. And the same is also true. Let's say your horse is already on hay. A lot of horses are on hay year round. Mm-hmm. And then let's say you're switching hay suppliers for some reason. So anytime you switch forages, then you need to take it gradually. And you also need to consider adding a prebiotic to the mix just to give the bacteria that live in the hindgut an edge, and so that they can proliferate and be, make your horse healthier.
That's a great idea too. So you really do need to transition from one mix to another almost any time. Horses are finicky that way, aren't they?
Well, they can be, of course. Some horses like mine, they'll eat anything. But then there are other horses that, really, really turn their nose up at anything that's different. And that can be so frustrating. So it's good to do it gradually. And if you're lucky enough to have hay that enough of both kinds so that you can gradually transition over to a different type of hay, or certainly in the case of pasture, throwing some hay out on the pasture so the horse gets accustomed to that as well. So anything that you can do to do it slowly, to wean them in reverse, so to speak, is a good thing.
Mm-hmm, that's great. So yeah, I've done that. Throw a few flakes out in the pasture and everything. What about those guys who kind of turn up their nose and go like, "Are you kidding me? I got a pasture here. What do I do with that?"
Well, yeah, you don't want to waste your hay because they'll probably just use it, to enjoy themselves on. But I would just keep trying. I would keep putting it out because eventually the pasture is going to become to where it's not as tasty. When it stops growing and starts going dormant, then the horse may find the hay to be a better choice.
Well done. Okay, so for procrastinators, don't do it. Order your hay early if you can at all, right? And then you start to feed a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and kind of blend it over, right? Am I getting that right?
That's the ideal situation. Now, of course, there are times you get a whole new batch of hay and you can't really do much of that. So if you're in that kind of a circumstance, then it's especially important to give your horse a prebiotic, something that contains various types of fermentation products from various bacteria that will feed the existing bacteria, along with some yeast or yeast extract that will also help. I don't think you need to worry about offering a probiotic. A probiotic is those are live organisms, and that would not really be necessary. But a prebiotic, most products contain a little bit of both, so it's okay if there are some probiotics in there. But what you're really looking for are prebiotics.
Okay. All right. So we're transitioning now. It's getting colder. Obviously, the grass has stopped growing and maybe the horses are even inside now. But how do we watch our horses' weight? How do we, it starts to get cold. Some can lose their weight. And, I guess maybe describe a little bit about what we're watching for, what's good flesh on a horse. And
Sure.
yeah.
Well, I mean, every horse is different. What's good flesh for one may not be sufficient for another. Like if you have a thoroughbred, a body condition score of about a 4 or 4.5 is usually fine. Whereas if you have a warm blood, then you're probably looking at a body condition score of somewhere between 5 and 6. If your mare is pregnant, then it has to be at least a 6, maybe even higher. So it's that's an individual thing. However, when the horse is struggling to maintain a normal body temperature, that burns a lot of calories. And so you want to make sure that your horse is capable of keeping warm. Now, for the vast majority of horses that are not clipped, they should grow a sufficient winter coat. And I am very much against blanketing horses that have adequate coats. So you let the coat do its job. And if you blanket the horse, you push the hair down, and it cannot keep the horse warm. Keep in mind that just because we're cold when we go outside, the horse is already wearing a coat. So we put on a coat, but the horse doesn't need a second coat. They already have one. So that's assuming that they have a good, healthy coat. But if your horse is clipped, obviously the horse will need a blanket. If your horse is too thin or older, then blankets may be worthwhile. So I kind of respect the horse owner's judgment on that, but try not to make the mistake of overheating the horse. Horses love the cold weather. They just, we've all seen it when it gets crisp and cold outside. The horses run around and buck and have a high old time. And they really enjoy it. So don't blanket them just because you're cold. Watch your horse, see how he behaves. If he starts to shiver, of course, and that's obviously a problem. If it's wet and it's raining, you don't want the skin to get wet. So you want to protect him against that if it's cold and wet. So it's a lot of common sense involved in it. But in general, a horse's coat should be sufficient.
Yeah, good. Well, God made him. He doesn't make mistakes. So it does make a lot of sense when you think about it. But we all, I'm always cold. So, I look at a horse who's standing out in the rain thinking he has every opportunity to get out of the rain, and look at him. They enjoy it. I know they enjoy it. It's just hard for me to, put myself in that position. So that's all. Yeah, we get it. But so if we have done our job right, you told me a stat just now, a few minutes ago, that is really comforting, frankly, that you've never had one of your horses colic. And I think I prefaced it by saying, everybody's a little familiar with colic, right? And you said, no, not necessarily. And I think that's encouraging. So tell us.
I think most of us are familiar with it, but whether or not it's your horse that's experiencing it, doesn't necessarily have to be the case. But horses can colic for all kinds of different reasons, but generally, if the digestive tract is well taken care of and they're adequately hydrated, we're not going to see a lot of colic cases. In the wintertime, however, the most common cause of colic is dehydration, and the best way to protect your horse from that, if you live in an area that gets below freezing, is to make sure that the water supply is heated, generally to about 45 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, because horses won't drink water adequately if it's ice cold. So if you have a situation where you have to go out early in the morning and crack the ice off the water trough, that is a potentially dangerous situation because the horse has been without water all night. So you need to find a way to either have a automatic watering system, something that has running water that doesn't freeze, or what I always used to do is buy these big 16-gallon water tubs that had heating elements inside the plastic so they weren't exposed. And that allowed my horses to always have enough water to drink.
That's a great idea. Yeah, to have the electricity. I mean, it's hard for us to imagine how much they don't want to crack the ice. They don't want to get through there as thirsty as they might be. And no, they won't just get enough water from the snow on the ground. And
True.
There's a lot of things people kind of assume, and it's probably one of the more deadly ways to handle your horse.
Unfortunately, some people do think they get enough water from snow. And I found that out the hard way when I lived in Colorado when we lost our electricity and our water pump was not working. And so I had to go outside and fill a big 10-gallon vat with snow and heat it inside the house for water. And so 10 gallons of snow only gave me 1 gallon of water.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. I didn't even know the ratio, but I knew it wasn't very much. It's really fast. Yeah.
So horses don't get enough water from snow. And then in order to encourage them to drink, because if the water is cold, let's say you have an automatic waterer and the water is ice cold, but it's not frozen, they may not drink sufficient amounts because of the temperature. So it's important that they have salt. And salt is important year round. All full-sized horses need 2 tablespoons of salt per day all the time, regardless of the climate. They need more in the summer when they're sweating. But during the winter, 2 tablespoons a day. Usually I like to divide that up in between meals because more than 1 tablespoon at a time can be a little too salty for them. But that will encourage them to drink. So make sure if you're giving your horse salt that they have water close by and that it's always available.
Yeah. And do you put anything in your water to change the taste when for any reason at all? Traveling, maybe?
No. Oh, when traveling, yes, I would do that. When traveling, that's always an issue. In fact, I would start my horses to get used to water that's flavored with some unsweetened apple juice, just a little bit. And that way I took some apple juice with me on the road and I could just add it to the potable water that I got elsewhere. And they drank just fine while on the road.
Good. Okay. So colic is that word that people get a little afraid of. And for new horse owners or people who haven't put a plan together, what should people do if they find themselves in a situation, even if it's the horse in the stall next door at the equestrian center, if they feel like they're in a colicking situation, what's the first thing they should do?
Well, if you think that your horse is colicking, the first thing you do is you call your vet. I mean, that's very important because colic can be something that the horse can get over, or it can be a medical emergency that requires surgery. So you really don't know what the situation is. So call your vet and don't force the horse to walk, but try not to let him, thrash around. It's best to let him just be calm. Okay. So that's more of a medical emergency than anything else.
Good. Okay.
So, but
sometimes people wait a long time.
Yes. No, you don't want to wait around. If the horse has some type of torsion or impaction, this can be very dangerous. So I wouldn't fool with colic. One thing that I find that a lot of horses, another reason that horses develop colic during the winter is when they transition to hay, is because they tend to eat their hay too quickly. They eat it all, whatever's in sight, and then they eat it too quickly. And think about the moisture level in hay typically is about 6 or 7%, whereas the pasture moisture is 50% or more. So you're going from a moist feed to a very, very dry one. And if it's eaten too quickly, there can be impactions. Generally speaking, though, if a horse has forage all the time, like I'm always promoting, then they will calm down and they won't eat so quickly. So it's one of the main reasons horses colic on hay is because they only get hay intermittently throughout the day and they go for many hours without anything to eat, so that when they get their hay, they eat it all up and they just basically inhale it. So that's something to keep in mind when transitioning to hay, to fit correctly. If your horses are used to being on pasture and they're on there all the time, they need to be able to graze in the same manner with free choice hay.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really good point. That people should, if you can go to the website, horsemanshipradio.com, and just do a search for Getty and look back on all those things that Juliet's told us about forage and keeping that horse maintaining something in his system as much as possible. I think you'll understand even deeper her conviction for that last point you just made.
Thank you. I tend to bring it up quite a lot because
it's good.
It applies to everything else. And there's one other thing that I'd like to say about during the winter, instead of just locking them in a stall, I would recommend, if at all possible, to give your horse the choice of being in a stall or not. Mm-hmm. If you're lucky enough to have a situation where you can open up the stall doors and they can walk in or out at will, that would be the ideal circumstance, so that they can choose, do they want to be in shelter or do they not? Most of the time, you'll find that they don't, just like you've seen them stand out in the rain, Yeah. So that's a real important thing, because horses that are stalled for long periods of time can have all kinds of health issues. And so I like to allow them to have more freedom, even in the cold weather.
Yeah. And I think for the rest of the population called humans, we think that's ideal too, because then we can say, well, they have their choice. And so we gave them a choice. I don't know why they're standing outside, but we feel better knowing that, it was their choice. So yeah, thank you, Dr. Getty. I appreciate it. And I love it that you're transitioning into your winter with a little trip up north, and enjoy your time in Wyoming. We'll be thinking of you and can't wait for the inspiration that you bring back to us on Horsemanship Radio.
Thank you so much. I'm hoping it'll snow. I haven't seen snow in a few years, so maybe.
Oh, I will hope for white stuff for you then. Good.
Thank you.
All right,
it's a pleasure, David. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I'm excited to introduce you to Coro, my new online shopping destination where I can find all my favorite horse care products for the best prices, and they're shipped directly to my barn door. Coro was created for the horse owner and horse care professional whose hard work and dedication goes into caring for their horses. To make it even easier, with industry expertise, they have tried and tested products, and they even have horse-inspired storytelling all under one roof. They offer auto ship so that you can never run out of your go-to supplements, your grooming products, your fly sprays, your horse cookies, and more, where you set the frequency of how often you receive items, as well as you can unlock additional savings they have up there. They even offer an afterpay, which I like, which then splits your payments into 4, payable every 2 weeks. It's great. Coro has something for everyone, no matter what breed of horse you have or what their job might be. They care about the way you care about your horse, which is why they have tons of content on their blog. It's what makes them different. Coro stories, and they've created a community on their social platforms to help educate and entertain and even inspire horsemen and horsewomen alike. Owning a horse can be expensive. Caring for them shouldn't be. Check out their website today at coroshop.com. That's COROSHOP.com. And use the code horsemanship10 for 10% off your first order today. This is all for the love of your horse. Coro.
Whisper the language of the herd. Listen, you don't have to say a word.
It's time for Jamie Jennings to fetch an email from Monty Roberts' inbox and share a morsel of Monty's wisdom in a little segment we like to call Ask Monty.
Leave this world a better place than mine. The magic in the language of the herd.
Dear Monty, I'm a new horse owner and I have a 20-month-old colt I've never done a join-up with. He's already pretty connected to me. Would it benefit me to do one, and should I wait until he's a little older? Monty's answer. Dear Kevin, my book, From My Hands to Yours, has a section on what I recommend regarding when and how much to do in the area of join-up. If you read that, you will realize that you are already well past the point where I would have done my first join-up with them. It is my position that join-up done properly will always be beneficial. 20 months is a prime time to be sure that the horse is familiar with the partnership with human beings. I recommend the first is shortly after weaning. By 20 months, I would be doing 2 to 3 join-ups within a week's time. Get busy, and I think you'll find it beneficial. Monty.
For more of these insights into good horsemanship, go to montyroberts.com and click on the words Ask Monty at the bottom of the page.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?
Where in the world is Monty Roberts?
Monty is looking forward to meeting some new friends, two-legged and four-legged. And November 6th through 8th, coming right up, we have an intro course, Module 4, and that's preparing for the intro exams. So for those people who have taken the others, they're ready. And then on the November 10 through 12, we have an introductory course, Module 1, for those that are starting the next pace, and that's for steps to Monty's methods. And then November 13th through 15, we've got Horse Sense and Healing again for our veterans and first responders. And then November 17th through 19, we've got the introductory course Module 2, that's Join Up, and everything that entails in learning how to get up to a join up, and then the process of follow-up after that. And then November 20 through 22, we have the introductory course Module 3. See, we're coming full circle there. And that one is all about long lining and groundwork. So then we are into December. In December 1 through 3, we have the introductory course Module 4, preparing for the intro exams. And then December 4 through 6, we have our last of the year, Horse Sense and Healing for veterans and first responders. And then February 8th is taking a leap into the future here. February 8th through 12th, we have our Monty special training. And we're really excited about that because we're going to be using our transition horses in that.
Oh, neat. Great. Yeah. And for all of that and more, go to montyroberts.com. That's the official website for Monty Roberts and everything Monty Roberts. It's all there in one place, and it's brand new and sparkling and easy to navigate and beautiful.
Thank you.
Or if you want to go old school and give them a call on the phone, you can do that. It's 805-688-6288, and you will be greeted by a happy, friendly, knowledgeable human being who will help you with everything you need. And by the way, you're driving down the road, listening to this podcast, and you could not jot down that number, 805-688-6288, you could go to montyroberts.com, and the phone number's there, too.
It is. We give you a cheat sheet. There it is.
Full circle there. And for details about today's show, you're going to go to horsemanshipradio.com. This is episode 170. And you're going to find links, photos, and more information about today's guests and topics. We love your feedback. Please follow Monty Roberts on Facebook. The page is Monty Roberts. Look for the one with the little blue check mark. And Monty is also on other social media platforms, Twitter and Instagram. His handle is Monty_Roberts. And if that's not enough, go get the app and help your friends get the app. We have a native app for Horse Radio Network. It has all the shows on it. So you can press the All Shows button, and then you subscribe to all the shows. They come right to your phone. Or you can pick and choose which ones you want. We have between 14 and 17 shows going at one given moment or all the time. And the app does work with both iPhone and Android. If you don't know how to get to your app store and download an app, find a 9-year-old and they'll do it for you.
True. And they'll even show you how to use it and everything. Yeah, but I love it when you admonish us to tell our friends how to use it once we've learned, like we really know something. But it's so easy, you guys. It's so easy. Downloading is the hardest part, if that tells you something. But I love it, too. It satisfies the need to do the check mark thing. I don't know about you, but I'm a check mark person. I like to check things off my list. And, every time you've listened all the way through to an episode, it does a satisfying little check after that, so you know which ones you've listened to and which ones you need to. So I have so much fun with that. Anyway, is that OCD? I'm not sure, but many thanks to our sponsors too. We couldn't do this without them. That's Finishline Fencing and all the great folks there. Thanks, Kim. And also MontyRobertsUniversity.com. I love our team. Thanks, Janine and Julia and Monty. And I just hope that everybody, every time I say this, I really want people to do this. Be sure to visit all the other great shows on the Horse Radio Network, because you're going to become addicted to these podcasts that are all about horses. And that is at www.horseradionetwork.com. Jen and Glenn and all the team have provided such a great platform. So until next time, I mean this, have many happy horse hours.